Hi, I'm Jim Bergeron, pastor of Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Houston, Texas. This is the Sunday that is Pentecost 5B. The text is Mark 5, 21 to 43. Interruptions. Aren't they aggravating? You're deep into the storyline of the television program, and your train of thinking and viewing is interrupted by Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, with a commercial for pillows and dog beds and mattress covers, direct from his factory in Minnesota. You're adjusting your mind for this whole new set of informational attention stimuli. And Mike breezily says, "And now I interrupt this message to tell you about Giza Dream Sheets," while he shows you a map, not of Minnesota, but of the Nile Delta in Egypt, where the cotton is ostensibly grown for his special sheets. Interrupt this message are words indicating high importance of emergency status. A major interruption has been majorly interrupted. Your mind is baffled in the throes of ideational whiplash. In the confusionness of the maelstrom, you will buy it all, simply to achieve conceptual parity. It's genius-level advertising. Glad to pass it on for you, Mr. Lindell. It's exactly how gospel writer Mark blends opposing storylines to create one wonderful recounting of how Jesus healed two incredibly different people of the same thing, from opposite life situations, with opposite needs and opposite returns. This healing reordered creation from chaos, created social parity, diminished human isolation, and lifted up the faith that creates hope and meaning. Let's begin by noting that Jesus heals at the absolute extremes of the social margin. The daughter of the richest man in town, in charge of all the synagogue activities from maintenance and renovation to worship and weekly readings, must wait for the healing while Jesus is interrupted by a woman of no status, ritually unclean for over a decade, completely isolated, and nominally worthless. It is a tense meeting of the proposition that, well, one of these lives matters, and the other life no longer matters. Jesus doesn't demean Jairus for his money and social standing, and he doesn't ignore the older woman for her impoverishment, uncleanness, and marginal status. They are both daughters of Israel and addressed by Jesus as such. In both stories, competent authorities have signed off on these particular cases. The best physicians with the best remedies couldn't heal the woman's bleeding. The best undertakers that Jairus' money could buy pronounced his little girl dead. And it was a usual diagnosis back then. By the mid-teens, 60% of people who had been born had died. That's this young lady's age. Few regular folks lived out their 30s. Only 3% of people even reached their 60s. To be considered an older woman meant you had to have attained the age of 24 at least. Both storylines involve ritual uncleanness. Jesus' touching them will make him unable to function in the future, unless his touch somehow removes the potential for defilement. Jesus can't be accused of uncleanness from touching the woman with a bleeding discharge if she's now clean. He can't be accused of touching a corpse if she is now walking and eating, and he says, well, she was sleeping. These two women likely never met or would ever meet, but they are connected as creational equals through the agency of Jesus Christ. They are, in fact, absolutely necessary for each other in the grand scheme. Mark speaks with an amazing candor concerning volatile and taboo subjects. The woman has experienced 12 years of death with her disease. The girl has only experienced 12 years of life. She was born the same year that the woman began unstoppable bleeding. On the same day, both were healed. One stopped bleeding, and that restored her life. The other had her life restored so that she could bleed to produce life. Throughout the Bible, blood is life. So menarche is cut short and then restored or begun by an anomaly of menopause gratefully concluded. Each woman needs what the other woman has. The blood of death becomes the blood of life. The universe is balanced. Parity is achieved. This miraculous interruption leads to perfect balance. Jairus, in faith, bows before Jesus as an indicator that they are social equals when he requests a healing for his daughter. He is in need. He asks for a favor. Jesus agrees. This is a public and witnessed social contract. Jesus is duty-bound at this point to drop everything and go. The interruption of the woman with the hemorrhage shocks everyone. Jesus interrupts a life and death mission for a VIP, which is legally contracted in public to serve the lowest of the low. That's a huge mistake, a faux pas of the highest order, a complete social gaffe, an embarrassment to anyone with a vested interest in the outcomes. The scandal is heightened by the public announcement that, oh, too late, Jairus' daughter is now dead. It's a miracle of fatherly faith that he didn't assault Jesus on the spot for breach of contract and malpractice. Jesus puts his foot in it big time to commit a prophetic and symbolic act for them and for us. His new kingdom is taking place. It's taking shape. The old system of honor and shame, religious purity, big differences between people, unchangeable caste distinctions. Those differences are dead. That's the symbolism of the death of Jairus' daughter. Wealth, privilege, entitlement, they're not salvation. Her age of 12 symbolizes all the tribes of Israel, who may not survive the first century AD if they don't see that the new kingdom is a new social order with equal status for all. The new kingdom, a new Israel, is life-giving and affirming for all sides. We all deal with interruptions. Things are going according to plan, and then a sickness or tragedy or winning the lottery. It happens and everything changes. I had several goals all worked out for my life and for my first parish that I served, Holy Trinity in Houston. 54 days after I arrived there, the building burned down. August 23rd, 1975. Interruption! Make a dear friend and one of you moves away. Interruption. Be a part of a love that will never die. And then one of the parties does. Horrible interruption. You can resent an interruption and be irritated, or you can know that life always changes and it throws curved balls, and that's certain. Get out of the way. Here comes another interruption. You can be paralyzed by interruptions and pull back and isolate, but what does that gain? Or you can make interruptions pay and produce miracles for you. You can withdraw forever because of the interruption of a lost love, or you can write $1 million song. Today's story of paradoxical healing in the midst of a variety of embarrassing interruptions remind me of the vast differences between Goodnight Irene and Handel's Messiah. There are no differences. In one sense, they're both the same song. They are both products of grief over the interruption of a very good thing. They are both products of fear transforming into faith. They're illustrations of adapting to the interruptive changes in life and finding new life. Guy had a house on the stilts by the river. He kept chickens in a pen below the house. The river flooded, the chickens drowned. He was depressed and wanted to move. But his neighbor advised, get some ducks instead. Duck eggs are bigger. Christian faith has very little to do with what happens to us. It has everything to do with how we handle what happens to us. The highs will make us glow, but the lows will make us grow. Cross on Calvary was the ultimate interruption through which Christ constructively created salvation for us. Interruption's a chance, an opportunity to be alert for God's miracles and our responsive ingenuity. We thrive in a world of interruptions, both good and bad. We can thrive because we are touched by Jesus, the man with a flow of power. Amen.